Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL, Wednesday morning here in Washington, D.C. It's Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson. Colin Quinn will join us about a half hour from now, the comedian. You remember him from Saturday Night Live, MTV, been on HBO, and it's going to be at the Improv tonight. Looking forward to talking with him in about 30 minutes. Arthur Brooks is with us right now, president of AEI, the American Enterprise Institute. Also has a new book out called The Road to Freedom. Arthur, good to have you back on the program. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, guys. Great to be with you.
So I know there's ultimately a strong economic point to make for why the free market should be reigning in this country and why it's best to allow the private sector to grow and bloom. But do you say that there is a moral case for it as well? Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, you bet. You know that we've been effectively losing the argument. We've got all the data that show that free enterprise makes us really rich. But you look at the policies, you see that the government has been growing for year after year after year. It looks like we're losing the debate. The President of the United States gets up and talks about fairness every single day, that the rich have to pay more, we have to spend more government money, we have to spend money we don't have, our kids are going to pay for. We got to do something to win this argument. I wrote this book because basically people who believe in free enterprise need a guide to winning the argument, using the arguments that are tried and true, that are actually going to work to change people's hearts. And those are moral arguments. You know, you hear the left talk all the time. You know, we need a fairer country. We need a country that lifts up the poor. Well, the truth of the matter is that's why we care about free enterprise. You know, fairness is not spreading the wealth. Most people, about 89% of Americans, believe that real fairness is rewarding merit and creating an opportunity society. And what we're doing today is exactly the most unfair set of things we could possibly do. We need to take the game to politicians who want to spread the wealth and say we demand a truly fair nation.
Well, what happened along the way? I remember the old quote from Calvin Coolidge that the business of the American people is business. It used to be that business people were admired. People who went out and accomplished something and created jobs and developed a product were widely admired in this country, and today it seems that they're considered evil.
Well, the truth of the matter is that most Americans still think that business and commerce and entrepreneurship are really great and noble things. For example, you find that small business, the favorability rating among the American people is 95%. I mean, the small business polls better than your mom. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. These are still considered to be the real American heroes. But what has happened is we have a government that tries to vilify capitalism and basically tells us that free enterprise is nothing more than a sham to help the rich. And a lot of people in the business world have fouled it up. I mean, if you look at the financial crisis, you find a lot of people that were in league with the government getting bailouts and special deals. Corporate cronyism is nothing more than an offshoot of big government, and they're both equal threats to liberty, and those of us who like free enterprise need to stand up to both.
But Americans love examples, and they want to see, hey, well, explain to me how your philosophy, your ideology is actually going to work. And so you said you're right about that. I mean, all Americans, they care about poor people. And there's no doubt about that in this country. And look at the schools, for instance. You know, they are failing in poor neighborhoods, but yet more and more of these school systems demand, they want more money, even though they get more money than other school districts. So can there be examples? Can Republicans show that, hey, if you actually allow, you know, the private sector to work out there and you take government out of it, that it actually will lift people out of poverty, will actually improve the school system? See, we got to show examples of how it actually works.
Oh, for sure. And there are tons of examples of charter schools, of KIPP schools, of school voucher programs and things that truly are reaching into the bottom 20% of the income distribution, which I believe that ethically we're commanded to look out for these people, but not by spreading the wealth around, but rather by creating opportunity. And more than just creating examples of success, we need to put a human face on it. You know, it's one of the things that I frequently find when I talk to free market advocates, and they say, you know, I'm talking to my sister-in-law, and I say, free markets are best for bringing the country back, and she says, yeah, but I just met a little girl who lives with her mother in a car.
Exactly.
And we lose the argument because there's this human face on it. Look, we want to help that little girl in the car, and the truth of the matter is that 80% of the world's worst poverty since 1970 has been eradicated because of globalization and free trade and entrepreneurship, not because of the United Nations or foreign aid. We need to make the examples of the ways that we've been able to lift up people all over the world. That you can lift up poor by the billions with free enterprise, and it's a truly moral and ethical thing to do.
As you look at the Romney campaign, I would imagine you see a guy there who understands business. Who does he need to pick as his vice president?
Somebody who, in my view, somebody who's extremely articulate and making the case for fairness.
And who might that be?
What's that?
Who might that be?
That Marco Rubio's great at it. Paul Ryan is outstanding at it. Chris Christie really gets it. Rob Portman. He's got such a big list of people who can do this, who are excellent at it, who can basically say, Mr. Obama, you know the problem is? You're defining fairness wrong. This is sleight of hand. We don't think fairness is spreading the wealth. We think real fairness is creating opportunity and rewarding the makers, not rewarding the takers in this country. Somebody can stand up and say that and show a little justifiable outrage.
Yes, and can they do it though? I mean, I love what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. But can it actually be done, or are we at a point in this country where the number is close to 50% aren't paying federal taxes, and they're getting more money from the government than they're putting in? Are we close to that tipping point where you can't return from it?
It's pretty hard. It's definitely the case that there are certain people who want to push us toward that tipping point. They want to effectively make us into a European-style social democracy, and you guys know where that road leads. I mean, look at what's happening across the Atlantic. It leads to helplessness and hopelessness and a death spiral. I mean, if you look at what Francois Hollande, who just elected the president of France, he's recommending no more, let's cut back on austerity, more stimulus, and just take the money from the rich. That sounds an awful lot like the current administration here in the United States as well. So we urgently have to make this case before we hit the tipping point, before so many people are net takers in this country that we can't go back to our founding principles.
Well, and I agree with what Brian was saying. It seems that it's going to be increasingly difficult to do that if that argument is not made in this election cycle. This for people who believe in free enterprise and business and the things that made this country great. This is a really important election.
It's a big deal. I mean, that's exactly the reason I wrote this book. It's a book that basically is an owner's manual. It says, if you have only 30 seconds to make your argument, and then the truth of the matter is you only get 30 seconds before people shut down and stop listening.
You're singing my song, brother.
Yeah. These are the things you need to say. You need to talk about earned success. You need to talk about true merit-based fairness. And you have to talk about the real way to help the poor. If you talk about those three things and you hit it early, right in the first 30 seconds, get prepared to win.
All right. Arthur Brooks, great to have you on the program. Good luck with the book.
Thanks, guys.